Hello, good evening, everyone, or good morning if you're following from other parts of the world. And hello, Bhante Suddhāso, thank you so much for teaching us. It's surprisingly light outside at this time, just the observation. and hello, Elaine. Hello, James. Good to see you. And Gabriella. Oh, who says, hope you're well, safe, and have requisites you need. Oh, hello, Jin. Hello, Kevin, Scott, Jens. Come. Hello. Good to see you. And Adriana. Sadhu. Andy, who offered us food today, the requisite of food. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Angsam and Rachel. Good to see you, Rachel from Rockaway. Oh, lovely. And Key from Australia, good to see you. Belinda. Oh, we have some Rockaway represents also with Jessica. Well, kind of. Jessica's not exactly in Rockaway, but close enough. And Demi, Kat. Lovely, lovely seeing you all. So apparently you're all getting triggered these days, which is why you're here connecting with Bhante, who will be talking tonight on getting triggered. But before we're going to talk about that, oh, hello, Yanni and Michelle. Good to see you. We're going to be practicing meditation for a period of time. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you. So first, please get in a meditation posture. So sitting up nice and straight. If you can, sit in the full lotus position. If you can't, well, work on it. Do some stretching every day. Do some yoga, especially stretches to open up your hips. That's the most important thing. People often think it's the knees, but it's not the knees, it's the hips. So look online for hip opening yoga postures. Hip opening yoga. Just type that into any search engine and it will give you videos and images and guidelines of how to open up your hips for sitting full lotus.
Now everybody's getting triggered because of this. Although PSA, actually both Rachel and Kat, I believe, are yoga teachers and they're doing yoga live streams these days.
Yes. So actually, Rachel and Kat, if you can recommend some specific hip opening postures to support the development of full lotus position, that would be great. So now that you're all sitting in full lotus posture or something approaching that, bring your body into stillness. So making a determination to let the body be still. So in English, we say hold still, but actually you don't need to hold the body. You just need to let it be still. Just don't move it. If you don't move the body, then it will be still. It's actually quite simple to sit still, just don't move. So make a determination to not move, to let the body be still. And take a few long, slow, deep breaths. With each breath, letting the body and mind relax. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just let the body relax. Relaxing the forehead, the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth, and the jaw. Relaxing your shoulders, your abdomen, your legs. Just letting the whole body relax. As you feel your body, look for a subtle feeling of pleasantness in the body. Pay attention to the pleasantness of the body, however subtle or minute it might be. Pay attention to the subtle, enjoyable feeling of euphoria all through the body. Bringing attention to the experience of pleasant sensation throughout the body. Allowing a slight smile to come to your lips as you focus on feeling the pleasantness of the body. So, not moving the mind through the body, just letting the mind be still, holding the entire body in awareness as a single pleasant object, a single pleasant area of sensation. Again, focusing on how good the body feels. And really enjoying this experience of being right here with your body, right here in the present moment, fully awake, fully alert, peacefully enjoying the sensation of the body. And as you become more and more aware of the pleasantness of the body, try to increase its intensity, making that euphoric feeling stronger, brighter, more and more enjoyable with each moment. Like slowly turning up a light, slowly increasing its brightness. Keep the body relaxed as you focus on euphoria, as you build up euphoria. Let the body remain relaxed, tranquil. Keep focusing on the pleasantness of the body, letting the euphoria grow brighter and brighter with each moment. The more still the body is, the stronger the euphoria will be. The more relaxed the body is, the faster the euphoria will build. So keep the body still and relaxed as you focus on intensifying the pleasantness of the body, enjoying the pleasantness of the body. feeling this joyful, peaceful mind, and wishing for all beings to have this same bliss, this same tranquility, this same joy, the same ease, the same peace of mind. So feeling your own experience of pleasant body, pleasant mind, peaceful body, peaceful mind, and wishing, may everyone be happy, just as I am happy. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. May everyone be safe. Just focusing on the sense of well-being, euphoria, serenity that you're having. And wishing for everyone to have the same peace of mind. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. May everyone be safe. Just keep repeating these phrases, focusing on happiness and peace you're feeling, and wishing for everyone to have the same happiness and peace. You can relax your posture. So a bit of stretching or self-massaging if you need to. Just take a moment to rest in the peacefulness of the mind. Not doing anything in particular. Just resting in the feeling of peacefulness and serenity that comes after a period of meditation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bhante, for guiding us in meditation. And Adriana was saying earlier, triggered by the sound of my knees popping due to the lotus suggestion. And Rachel is kindly offering to do a video on the stretching. And apparently you managed to get Trisha to do the lotus position.
Great. Good for you. Congratulations.
She says, I've been doing full lotus because of you suggesting, Bhante. Been trying for 10 years, but always gave up. It's not so bad now.
Great. Yeah, just stick with it. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So in the beginning, before your hips are fully opened up, then you'll have to do a fair amount of stretching in order to get to the point where you can start sitting full lotus. But once you start sitting full lotus all the time, it gets easier and easier. And you don't need to do the stretching anymore, because sitting full lotus itself is maintaining your hips, your hip flexibility.
All right. And good to see you, Richard. Welcome. And hello, Gautam and Bella. Always good to see you. Julia, hello. And Mike and Monica, good to see you. All right. And Claudia, good to see you as well. All right. So the subject tonight is getting triggered. So perhaps Bhante has a few things to share.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So first off, I should say that I actually got a bit triggered when I found out that the abbess had assigned this topic to me. So I wasn't really interested in talking about this particular topic, but she who decides all things decided that this was what I was going to talk about. So there was a little bit of a spark in my mind of like, so what is it that we mean? First off, just to give some definition so we're on the same page here. So when we talk about getting triggered, what we mean is that there's some experience, usually external, but sometimes it's a thought in our own mind, but usually it's some external sensation. So something we see or hear, negative emotional reaction. Though being triggered can also trigger greed or desire, but normally when we talk about being triggered, we mean something that triggers irritation or annoyance, anger, resentment, hostility, negativity of some kind. That's usually what we mean when we use that expression. But just to be clear, it can also include triggering greed or desire or sadness or depression or despair or other unwholesome emotions as well. But usually when we talk about being triggered, we're talking about the aversion category of unwholesome emotions, unwholesome attitudes of mind. And usually when we get triggered, what we do is we fixate on the trigger. We fixate on the event or the person or the statement or the email or the hair color or whatever it is that triggered us. And we start going on with the story in our mind about why we are correct to be triggered, why what that person said was so horrible and awful, and why that new government policy is the worst thing that's ever happened, even though realistically it probably is. Then we start telling ourselves the story of how irritating this situation is, or how upset we have a right to be about what's happening, and justifying our anger and justifying our irritation, and whatever it is. So this is completely wrong, because the more we go on and on with our story about why we're right to be triggered, the stronger our negative emotions will get, the stronger our unwholesome attitudes become, and the stronger our tendency to get triggered again becomes. So not only are we fueling and building up our current unwholesome states of mind, we're also making it even more likely that we'll be triggered again in the future. So we're strengthening the trigger, because the trigger is not actually the external event. The trigger is our internal habit of reactivity towards events of those kinds. That's actually the trigger. The external event is just the world. It's just samsara. So for those who don't know, when we say samsara, we mean the world of unenlightened, delusional people experiencing various kinds of unpleasant experiences. That's what we mean by samsara. So samsara is the conventional world, the ordinary world, which has things like selfish, foolish politicians, for example, or it has things like misogynist people. It has things like systemic racism, things which actually are categorically unwholesome, categorically bad, categorically harmful. So things that are undeniably immoral, unvirtuous, unfair, unjust, things that without a doubt we should be trying to change. Without a doubt, we should be trying to do something about these sorts of things. The problem is not recognizing that these are bad things. So again, misogyny, racism, greedy politicians, and bad government policies, and so on. There's no denying that these are bad things. And of course, we should do what we can to fix them. So there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that those things are harmful. And in fact, it's good to acknowledge that they're harmful, because that indicates that you care, indicates that you have compassion and conscience. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to try to help. Again, that's good. It indicates that you have conscience and compassion. Great qualities, by the way, compassion and conscience. Keep building those up. They're really wholesome, really good. However, none of that necessitates building up this negative emotional charge of hostility and anger and irritation and annoyance and resentment and so on. So we need to make a distinction here between recognizing that something is unjust and getting angry about something being unjust. You can recognize that something is unjust without getting angry. You can recognize that something is unfair without getting annoyed. You can recognize that something you're encountering has annoyed you in the past without getting annoyed in the present. You can recognize what's going on without giving in to your habit of reacting in any particular way. So for this to be possible, we need to have extremely sharp and clear self-awareness. So Buddhist practice then places a tremendous importance on the development of self-awareness as a foundation for self-training, self-development. So first we have to be clearly aware of what's going on in our mind moment by moment, clearly aware of how we tend to react to external conditions moment by moment. And in the beginning, we're going to be watching the reactions with this feeling that we can't control it. Like we'll just get angry about something, and we'll be like, oh, I can't help it. I just get so angry when that insipid moron starts doing his pathetic briefings, and ranting on and on about all the stupid things that he's invented in the last 24 hours. Uh, and and we think it's just automatic. We think it's just automatic that we get angry. We think it's automatic that we get triggered. But actually, it's not automatic. We're just not paying close enough attention to our own mind. So, watching our mind very closely, we can see there is the external event, then there is an internal impulse to react in a particular way. So, for example, an impulse to react with anger, or react with sadness, or react with irritation. And in that moment, we have a choice. We have a choice whether or not to go along with that impulse. We have a choice whether to participate in that impulse or to let it disappear. And all too often, we choose to go along with it because that's the path of least resistance in our mind. It's what we're used to doing. It's the well-worn track. So we tend to slip into that well-worn track. And that's not surprising. So as soon as we recognize we've slipped into that well-worn track of falling into a negative, unwholesome emotion of some sort, then we should immediately try to stop fueling it, try to stop feeding it. Try to bring the mind back to a state of peace and calm, a state of happiness and serenity, a state of loving kindness, of gentleness, of compassion, of well-wishing, trying to reestablish our internal serenity of mind. And again, these are all qualities that we're cultivating through meditation practice. Through meditation practice, we're learning how to be aware of our own mind. We're learning how to identify our internal triggers. We're learning how to restrain ourselves from making the wrong choice, to restrain ourselves from indulging in negative emotions, indulging in anger and resentment and hostility and despair and so on. So when we talk about being triggered, the first thing that we actually need to admit then to ourselves is that we do get triggered. We get triggered a million times a day in countless ways, large and small. So normally when people talk about getting triggered, they're normally talking about deeply upsetting things that really send you into a total rage, into a fit. But that's only the most extreme form. As you watch your mind throughout the day, you realize that you get triggered dozens or hundreds of times as you go throughout the day. It's just most of the time it's fairly small, fairly minor, and it passes by relatively quickly and easily. But that still is building up and strengthening the habit of being easily triggered. It's building up the habit of giving into our reactivity, of giving into our impulses towards unwholesome emotions. And if we're not clearly aware of these patterns of being triggered, then they'll keep getting worse. And we'll become even more and more susceptible to this unwholesome reactivity within our mind. So once again, though, it really is important to recognize that we must still be aware of what's right and what's wrong. We must still be aware. So when we do recognize that there is some injustice happening or something unfair or inappropriate, then instead of going into our habitual response of anger or negativity, irritation, craving, despair, our usual unwholesome reactivity, instead we can think, what can I do to help? What can I do to improve the situation? what practical things can I do to make a positive difference in the world related to this circumstance? And it always starts with our own mind. So cleaning up the negativity and the hostility and the greed and the selfishness and the prejudice and the arrogance in our own mind. Cleaning that up as much as we can. And doing what we can to be of benefit to others. So if you're recognizing that there's a injustice, ask yourself, how can I help? How can I be of benefit? So one thing which I found really impressive. So when the pandemic started to really take hold in Italy, and Italy started to have shortages of medical supplies, the abbess Ayasoma, instead of just sitting here and lamenting and getting irritated or getting sad, or well, she probably did get all of those things, to be perfectly honest. But instead of just wallowing in irritation and despair, instead she asked herself, "What can I do?" And so she found some nonprofit organizations that were fundraising and purchasing medical supplies and sending them to hospitals and providing direct aid to the medical system in Italy. And she started helping them out, fundraising for them, spreading the word about them, getting people to donate medical supplies and funds. So again, it's doing something from a place of compassion. So there's that conscience. So sometimes we're triggered because something is actually touching our conscience. It's triggering our awareness of right and wrong. It's triggering our awareness of what's wholesome and unwholesome. So that's a good thing. So sometimes where we get triggered is because our conscience is functioning. Our conscience is functioning correctly, and that it's recognizing something as being harmful or inappropriate. But then we make the wrong choice of cultivating negative attitudes of mind, cultivating negative emotional patterns and mind states. So instead, we can make the right choice, once again, of thinking, how can I help? So Ayasoma then thought, well, how can I help? And started supporting the medical relief efforts for Italy. And similarly, now that grocery stores in the area are no longer doing deliveries, or it's become very difficult to get deliveries because there's everybody in the entire country is now ordering delivery. Now she's set up a CSA program. So distributing food from local farms in the neighborhood, which is it's just amazing. So instead of just sitting on her hands and saying, oh, it's so sad that people don't have access to nice vegetables, instead she's thinking, how can I help the people in the neighborhood have access to good vegetables? I know, I'll set up a CSA program. So it's just marvelous. Again, it's asking, what can I do to help the situation? Because our anger never helps. It only harms. And it harms ourselves just as much as it harms others. In fact, it harms ourselves more than it harms others. But the conscience which underlies the trigger can be directed towards very powerful positive action. So it's important not to discard the conscience, not to fall into apathy. Because sometimes as people start to work with overcoming their habits of being triggered, then they kind of overshoot the mark and they land in apathy. It's like, well, I don't care. But that's not wholesome either. So apathy is not a desirable mind state. It's not a beneficial mind state. We want to preserve our conscience. We want to preserve that wish to bring goodness into the world, to better the world. And we want to apply that with our actions, to apply that with our speech. And to think, what can I do? What practical things can I do in order to alleviate the situation? So those are a few things I have to say on this. Hopefully you weren't triggered by my approach to this topic. So at this time, I don't really have too much else to say, so I'll go ahead and open it up for questions. So please, if you have anything to say about either the meditation period or the talk or whatever else is on your mind, please go ahead and type it into the live chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. And thank you for teaching nonstop every day, even on triggering topics. Good to see you, friends. There's also Sensei Alex Kakuyo, who we haven't seen in a while, who came on retreat here a long time ago. Good to see you.
Is that the one who does Japanese Pure Land?
I believe so, yes. And he says, does all of this tie back to the practice of right mindfulness? By the way, he says, thank you for this. Namo Amida Butsu.
Well, Amitofo, friend. Yes, right mindfulness is an important element of this, because one of the aspects of right mindfulness is to be clearly aware of your own mental states and mental patterns. So as I mentioned, that's the foundation. If you're not aware of your own mind states and mental patterns, then you won't be able to do anything about them. You'll always be an observer of one train wreck after another. So you have to be aware of what's going on in order to be able to interrupt the cycle and redirect the process. Another really important element of right mindfulness is that it also includes the awareness of impermanence. So it's also recognizing that whatever mind states and patterns you have are not fixed. They're not set in stone. They're things that can be changed. They can be redirected. They can be altered. And in fact, they're constantly arising and ceasing. So moment by moment, your mental states and patterns are vanishing, ceasing, which means that there's always the opportunity to cultivate different patterns, different states of mind. And another important element of right mindfulness is the practice of non-attachment, of letting go. So also recognizing that whatever mental patterns and habits we have do not define us. There are things that we can let go of. There are things that we can allow to disappear, things that we can allow to change, because they're not who we are. Often we form rather perverse self-identities, perverse because they're based on our defilements. We think like, well, I am the person who gets angry when XYZ. I am the person who gets upset when that sort of thing happens. Well, no, that's not who you are. That's just a pattern that's currently present, and it's a pattern which we can let go of, and it's a pattern which can change. And it's a pattern which can be replaced with something more wholesome. So no, you are not the person who gets angry when those things happen. However, there is currently a pattern of reacting with anger to those kinds of events, and that is a pattern which you have the power to let go of and the power to change. So yes, thank you. Right mindfulness most certainly is a critical piece of this practice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gabriella says, I'm used to triggering being used as a word to refer to specific similar events that cause post-traumatic stress flashbacks. But I suppose colloquially it has been abused to mean any kind of annoyance under the sun. For me, the post-traumatic stress flashbacks are present as reaction to sounds that flash me back to the external event that caused me deep trauma. How do I address the sound when my mind recalls the terror of the event that causes me deep terror and fear?
Well, in that case, I would recommend to try to be clearly aware of the sound as just being a sound. So without getting involved in the story, recognize that first there is just the sound. And the sound itself is just a sound. The sound itself has no story. It's purely a sensation, an auditory sensation. That's it. So start with clear awareness of just the sound. And then if you see the traumatic reactivity starting to happen in the mind, well, recognize it. See, oh, this is when I add the story of my memories onto the sound. So recognizing that the sound and the memory are two different things. And then if things progress from there, once again, be clearly aware of the sequence as it builds. And also recognize that you have a choice to disengage from that sequence at any time. So all of these things, they're happening sequentially. And it always starts with just this raw, neutral, meaningless sensation. And if you actually stay with that, then none of the sequence will happen. There'll be just the sound and nothing else. But if you notice you're starting to fall into the next step in the sequence, well, then be aware of the next step in the sequence and try to let it stop there. If you fall into the next step of the sequence, well, try to just let it stop there. But being fully aware each step of the way. That really is the critical piece here. We have to be fully aware each step of the way. Okay.
Thank you. And Bhante's asking, what is the practice to be aware of the arising of the reaction/emotion after being triggered, disallowing it to arise? For example, the moment before we make the decision on how to react to it.
Sorry, who said that?
Kam.
Kam. Okay, and can you say it one more time?
Yeah, sure. Bhante, what is the practice to be aware of the arising of the reaction emotion after being triggered, disallowing it to arise? For example, the moment before we make the decision on how to react to it.
So paying very close attention to your mind moment by moment, you can feel when something is unwholesome. You can feel when you're starting to turn towards the unwholesome. And if your conscience is finely tuned, then you will automatically stop. Just as when you step on a sharp object, you immediately pull your foot back up. It's not like you put your foot on the sharp object and you're like, oh, this is kind of painful. I wonder if maybe I should lift my foot up from this object. No, you put your foot, you pull off immediately. You don't have to think about it. It's the same. When your awareness is sharp and clear and your conscience is well developed, then the moment you put your mind on an unwholesome pattern, you'll immediately recoil. You'll immediately pull off from it. So it's not really a verbal thought process. It's something which is happening in the subverbal layer of mental activity, which is also why it relies upon strong mindfulness and concentration. You have to have good sati and good samadhi if you want to be able to work with the mind at this layer, at this level. So there's really no avoiding it. So every now and then, actually pretty often these days, people are asking me if they can get by without samadhi, and the answer is no, you cannot. Build your samadhi. Samadhi is power. It's what gives strength and precision to your mind training practices. Okay?
And James is asking, Bhante, how do we see agitation, hatred, greed during meditation to let go of it rather than feeding it more?
Yeah, once again, you just need to be clearly aware of your mind moment by moment. This is also one of the values, by the way, of practicing mindfulness of the body, is that when your attention is firmly grounded in awareness of the body, then that kind of gives you this like nice blank canvas on which you can more easily notice whenever you start to pull away into mental activities of any sort. Because those mental activities will turn up very sharply against the backdrop of attention to the body. So it becomes very noticeable. Whereas in our ordinary scattered mind state, where our attention is bouncing all over the place, then it's very difficult to catch when we start to get drawn into the trigger patterns. But when your attention is firmly grounded in constant awareness of the body, then whenever the mind goes towards anything else, it's immediately noticeable. You'll catch it right away. And you'll be able to identify right away what's going on. And you'll be able to stop right away. So this is really strong, again, mindfulness and samadhi, sati and samadhi, mindfulness and concentration. It allows you to recognize immediately when you're starting to fall into a trigger pattern and to stop immediately. Okay? So practice mindfulness of the body all day long. Always keep your mind firmly aware of your body's sensation. All day long, every moment, intensely, clearly aware of your body sensation. Then when you notice the trigger pattern appearing in the mind, you'll recognize it and you'll be able to stop. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. And Tina is asking, how about doing these sessions on Zoom? We can speak back and forth on YouTube and Facebook. It's just unidirectional. We're not able to follow up. Well, actually, this was a conversation that was opened up a few weeks ago before we started the live streams. So it was actually a democratic decision of people from all the social media Buddhist Insights followers. They all, 99% of them decided for YouTube. So we decided to go for YouTube. But there's lots of like meetings on Zoom with other monastics as well. So
also Discord. There's various options. Again, for a number of reasons. In addition to the democratic vote that Ayasoma mentioned, we also, for a number of reasons, have also decided that the YouTube platform works pretty well for what we're doing here.
And actually, Gabriella is the contact for the Discord that Bhante is talking about. So they have already like a full-fledged group. So for any questions, actually, Gabriella already posted a message with her email. So you can ask her for more information. And Rachel is offering the hip openers video. Okay, great. Yes, well, we're happy to share it with people once it's done. And Kevin is asking, what about simply avoiding certain externals that habitually trigger? For example, not watching news briefings. I know I can't live in a bubble, but can choose some of what we partake in, no?
Yeah, actually, often that's the best thing to do. If you know that something is going to trigger you and that you won't be able to control your mind, then often it's best just to avoid that. And at some point in the future, when your practice is more developed, then you'll be able to face those situations without getting triggered. But if you know that you're not ready yet, then don't do it. Like when somebody shows up at the swimming pool to learn how to swim and they've never swam before in their life, you don't throw them in the deep end and like, I'll figure it out. No, you start with the easy things and you avoid the deep end until the person's ready for it. So in the same way, if you know that you're not ready for something, then don't go there. But keep in mind that someday you'll have to face it. As for keeping up with the news, when there's major things going on like these days, then I actually think it is good to have some exposure to the news, but try to do it less often in controlled amounts, controlled doses. And ask yourself how much exposure to the news is actually of benefit to you and how much is harmful to you. So, for example, if you're spending 1 hour a day following the news, that's probably not really necessary. Maybe 1 hour a week is plenty. So maybe substantially reducing your exposure to news for the time being. And also, anytime you're going to go and look at the news, first, stop and do some meditation. Stop and do 10 or 20 or 30 minutes of meditation. Loving kindness meditation might be particularly well suited for this, but also building up your sati and samadhi, so building up a strong sense of self-awareness and a stable, collected, steady mind, joyful mind. And also reminding yourself that what you're going to look at is probably going to be upsetting in various ways. It's probably going to be more news about how greed, hatred, and delusion is destroying the world and causing tens of thousands of deaths and hundreds of thousands of afflictions. Be ready for it. Recognize that's what you're going to see. There might also be some happy things or cute things mixed in, but there's going to be a lot of disturbing and potentially upsetting things that you'll be looking at. So remind yourself that's what you're going to see. And remind yourself that this is samsara. You can't expect it to be otherwise. This is what it is. So we need to come to grips with that. So then your practice then will be, again, 1, look at news less often. 2, do meditation before you look at the news. 3, remind yourself that when you look at the news, there's going to be a lot of unhappy, unpleasant things there. And that's the way of the world. And we don't need to fall into anger or despair when we see that. And then as you look at the news, keep your mind peaceful. Do your best to keep your mind peaceful. And if you're losing your peace of mind, then stop. Go and do some meditation. And put off looking at the news for another day. Or another week, as the case may be. Okay?
Thank you. And yes, of course, we remember you, Sensei Alex Kakuyo. And Kevin is kindly reminding everyone to practice dana if they can. And if you wish to do so, you can go on buddhistinsights.com/donate. Apparently, YouTube encrypts and censors Kevin's lovely Parami messages. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Not for YouTube encrypting, but for Kevin's good heart. And Gabriella is saying, that is brilliant, Venerable. It reminds me of the Bahia Udana. Regard the herd as the herd, and that's it. Thank you for pointing this out. It's that the sequence is so fast. I'll watch closely next time. Elaine says, meditation question. I have no experience of pleasant bodily sensation, let alone euphoria. So when you instruct to feel this, where should I start?
Well, I recommend starting by feeling your whole body. And actually, honestly, I don't believe that your body doesn't feel pleasant at all. If your body felt exclusively painful all the time, that would actually be something seriously wrong. And you should probably go and see a doctor about that. But realistically, that's not the experience that we have. The experience that we have is usually a mixture of sensations, some pleasant, some neutral, and some painful. So what I'm recommending with this meditation is to pay attention to the experience of pleasantness in the body. So pay close attention to your body, feeling your whole body very intensely and strongly, and then direct your attention to any pleasantness in the experience of the body, anything which feels good, even slightly, even just the tiniest bit pleasant. So bringing up a sense of actively trying to enjoy the sensations of your body. And the more you do this, the more pleasant the body becomes, the more enjoyable the sensations of the body become. So this can be a little bit hard to get started with if you're used to perceiving your body as unpleasant. But if you actively start trying to perceive pleasantness in the body, you actively try to enjoy the experience of the body, then you'll start to spark that. You'll start to spark this euphoria. And in the beginning, again, it's going to be quite mild, quite subtle. But once you start to recognize it, then you can feed it, you can fuel it, you can make it grow. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. We have quite a few questions, so...
Oh,
yeah.
That's surprising.
So Victor is saying, Bhante, when I'm driving, the reaction sometimes is fight and flight reflex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, actually, maybe it's not a question.
Oh, okay.
But Edward is asking, are there chants I could use to stay self-aware throughout the day?
Well, the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition has a bunch of mindfulness gathas, which they use, which are little short verses that you bring to mind as you do various ordinary daily activities. So, like a little verse to recite in your mind while you brush your teeth, and a little verse while you're dressing, and a little verse while you're sweeping the floor, and a little verse while you're eating food, and a little verse while you're drinking water, and so on. Some people find those quite helpful, so you could try using those. But really, it's just about paying clear attention to your body all the time. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And Boone is asking how to recognize that we already help enough the unjust events so it does not become a burden.
Remind yourself of what you're doing. So remind yourself, yes, I am doing something about this. Yes, I am helping. So wonderful that I'm helping. Remind yourself of what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. And Kam is asking, actually, a really great question. Bhante, how about addressing internal triggers that we trigger ourselves? Not from external, but deep habits that keep triggering defilement. For example, desiring for something unwholesome.
Yeah, well, it's actually not substantially different. So watch your mind, notice when you're producing something triggering or when you're reacting to a mind state that's present or a mental object that's present, and stop. It's actually exactly the same practice. Whether it's an external trigger or an internal trigger, it doesn't make any difference. The practice is exactly the same. But yeah, you have to have that really sharp, clear self-awareness. The sharper and clearer your self-awareness is, the more effective you'll be at controlling your triggers. Okay.
Awesome, thank you. And Kat is asking not to stray from topic, but Eventbrite said tickets are gone for the week-long retreat. Can we still sign up? Yes, you can. Do not believe Eventbrite. I'll fix it tonight. Yeah, especially because the tickets are endless since we are doing live streams.
Yeah, infinite attendance.
Yes.
Yeah, Eventbrite can be a little glitchy sometimes.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out.
And Michelle is saying for PTSD, triggers. I believe the solution is to be present, but sometimes it is difficult to break into present moment during the trigger. Any suggestions for a quick present moment during the trigger?
Well, first off, there's an expression that we use in English. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So it's always, 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 always better to prevent yourself from getting into the cycle in the first place. Because once you're in it, it's much more difficult to break out. And often there's not really anything you can do except wait for it to end. So you just notice, oh, I'm in this cycle again. And you try to just watch without fueling it, without building it up. Try to just watch as the process unfolds. So peacefully watching as though it was somebody else's mind, with an attitude of patient endurance, an attitude of tolerance, an attitude of gentle observation. And when the cycle comes to its end, then reflect, how did that happen? What started all of this? And remind yourself of the importance of maintaining prevention. So sharp, clear self-awareness at all times. And restraining your mind, keeping your mind peaceful, not doing anything which contributes to restlessness or agitation in the mind, but also keeping the mind alert. So not letting the mind get hazy or dull or unfocused either. Because when the mind is hazy or dull, or when the mind is restless and agitated, those are the conditions under which we get triggered without recognizing what's happening until it's too late. Okay?
And Jen is saying, I found after incorporating metta meditation for an extended period as part of my daily practice, metta, kindness, compassion became my natural immediate response to triggers. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Great. Keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah, have a great. And Sally is saying, may I ask, when I recall the past event, I felt regret. Even I was aware regret is unwholesome, body not feeling ease. However, the trigger regret pattern still ongoing. Maybe due to the idea that want to change the past is so strong. How to overcome this?
Well, first off, recognize that there is a wholesome component to regret, which is conscience, once again. So regret, well, I mean, it depends. There are different kinds of regret. There's also, so this is assuming regret over having done something bad, rather than, say, regret that you didn't buy a candy bar at the store. That's a different kind of regret. That's not what I'm talking about. But regret about having done something bad. It's like maybe you said something mean to someone, and later on you feel regret. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was unwholesome. Well, the wholesome element of that mind state is your conscience. You're knowing that you did something unwholesome, knowing right and wrong. That's good. And the resolution to do better in the future, that's also good. But self-hatred, not good. So conscience is a wholesome mind state. Conscience is a joyful mind state. The resolution to be committed to virtue is a wholesome mind state. It's a joyful mind state. Self-hatred based upon memories of past actions is unwholesome and unpleasant. These don't need to be done together. You can be clearly aware that you did something unwholesome in the past, and clearly aware that you've presently decided to try not to do such things again, all with a peaceful, happy mind. There doesn't need to be, oh, I'm a bad person, I did such a bad thing, I have such bad habits, oh, woe is me. There doesn't need to be any of that. There can just be, oh, that was a bad choice. I'm going to try not to do it again because I'm committed to being a good person. And that can all be done with a peaceful, joyful mind. Okay?
Thank you. And Gabriella is saying, Venerable Sir, I feel like the impulse to respond is so fast, I can't catch it in time. Can you discuss the way we can fine-tune our sense restraint to slow down that reactive mind from being as fast?
Mindfulness and samadhi, sati, samadhi.
To the point.
Yes. But also control your restless thinking all day long. Don't let your mind think except when you need to, which is most of the time not. Most of the time you don't need to think about anything. So try to develop a habit of having a peaceful, still, settled mind all the time. Don't fantasize, don't daydream, don't space out, don't think about random things. Keep your mind quiet as much as possible, all day long. Then you'll be much less likely to fall into these states that you're describing. Okay? Is this why people say I'm scary?
No, I thought he got triggered.
Oh, no,
kidding.
I'm not triggered. I just speak a bit forcefully sometimes. There's one of our residents who says I'm scary. I don't know why. I think I'm very sweet and kind.
The resident is not for
the
record.
Yeah, it's not the abbess. It's one of the others. The abbess is the one who's really scary.
I'm not. Tina says, my procrastinating colleague triggers me every day. I feel angry and upset all day. I'm becoming a bad version of myself because I care about my projects and my colleague does not. How can I not be upset? I meditate before logging in, but the minute I talk with him in meetings, I get upset. He just wants to good look in meetings by talking and do no work. Ooh. Yeah.
People will be known by their actions. You do your work as best you can. Let him do his work however badly he wants, and people will know. they will know that you're doing a good job and he's not. And that's that. Sometimes you just have to accept that you cannot control other people and that it's not worth irritating yourself because of things you can't control, namely other people. Okay?
Thank you. And James is saying, I guess my issue is when I get the sensation, it's just so difficult to try and stop right there rather than letting the sensation spiral into a feeling that causes clinging. Any advice on that, Bhante?
Yeah, it's difficult. What can I say? There's a really lovely sutta. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it's a sutta in the Devaputta Samyutta where a deva comes to the Buddha and says, "Oh, it's so hard to do, so hard to do." And the Buddha says, "Yes, and we do that which is hard to do." Keep that in mind. Yes, Buddhism is hard. True. Facts. And we do that which is hard to do. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. And Sally says, could Bhante please explain a bit more regarding aware neutral feeling that Gabriela asked about the PTSD trigger? In the stage recalled the past event, I can't find neutral feeling there.
So it's looking for the sensation, the first sensation that triggered everything. So this is often clear in meditation, because in meditation we're really actively paying attention to our body and mind and not doing anything else, in theory. So you're sitting in meditation and there's a sound, maybe a thumping sound. And then you start reacting to that thumping sound. It's like, oh, that sounds like someone hitting something with a baseball bat. And then, oh, that reminds you of that time when your older brother was trying to hit you with a baseball bat. And then the sense of fear starts to come up, or the sense of anger, or the sense of despair, or the sense of hopelessness, or any of those reactive emotions start to come up. So you can see the sequence, but then if you catch it quickly enough, then you'll recognize, oh, actually, it was just a sound. It was just a sound. That's all. It doesn't have anything to do with all this story that I'm going on and on about. It's just a sound. So it's trying to catch it at the level of being just sound. As Gabriela pointed out, this is similar to the Bahia Sutta, which I'll be talking about at some point. It's on the list. Yeah, so try to catch it at the level of just sound, or just body sensation, or just sight, or whatever it is. And again, you start by training the mind during meditation because it's much easier, or much less difficult, I should say. Then it becomes easier to do it in the rest of your life. Okay?
And we have some amusing comments. Gabriela said, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much for that. And Cam says, you're not scary, Bhante. You are indeed sweet and kind.
Oh, that's very lovely of you to say, Cam.
And Gabriela says, I agree with you. That's very sweet, actually. But Claudia says, you're a little scary.
I guess I can be both.
But James says, you're direct, Bhante, not scary. Big difference, and I love it. And Cam says, we appreciate your strong conviction and call for urgency to practice. Much needed. And Gabriela echoes that with, I see that state of your zeal in Dhamma as you being energetic, and that's a good quality, Venerable Suddhaso.
Okay, for the record, I wasn't fishing for compliments, but nonetheless, I still appreciate the compliments. Thank you. Yeah.
And Adriana is keeping it real. Don't be scared of Bhante. Be scared of the monastery chickens when they're hungry. Yes. Or Stan.
Okay, Okay, for the record, I don't find the chickens scary at all. I actually find them really cute and adorable.
Unless they're hungry and then they peck at you. All right. And I think that's all for tonight. All of the questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We're very grateful for Bhante Suddhāso Bodhisattva teaching us the Dhamma unrelentlessly day and night. So in less than 12 hours, we're going to be meeting with Bhante Suddhāso again for Sutta study. So 8 a.m. New York City time here. And then in the evening at 7:30 p.m., we'll be doing meditation and Dharma discussion as usual. And then I believe on Wednesday, we're starting our week-long retreat. So you're all welcome to join us for the week-long retreat. We'll probably have also some impromptu live streams like during chanting, etc. During that time. We'll play by ear. Maybe we'll have more information tomorrow. And don't believe Eventbrite. They're still, I mean, you're always welcome to join. There are endless spots. And after the week-long retreat, we'll be still live streaming, and we'll have actually, I think it will be the Upasaka actually, right after. So in the morning after the week-long retreat, we will be taking the precepts here as we did last week, and then sharing some words of Dhamma. And then in the evening, Bhante Sanata Vihari will connect with us from California, and also sharing some words of Dhamma on the Upasata. And then, as usual, morning and evening, we'll have talks, and we're also organizing something with Bhante Akaliko in Australia, and we're probably going to set up sooner rather than later a little panel with them as well. Okay. So lots of good stuff. And if you have any ideas of questions, topics, and that you would like to explore during this pandemic time, please send them forward to info@buddhistinsights.com. All right. And Gabriela is saying, may your teachings be the foundation for awakening. Yes. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right. Have a great. See you soon.